We appreciate you standing by, and welcome to today's Cloud Services Community Webinar. Our topic for today is the rise of the cloud distributor. All phones are currently in listen-only mode, and later there will be a question and answer session with instructions being given at that time. You may ask a question at any time using the chat window located in the control panel. Any questions that come up in the chat will be answered at the end of the presentation during our Q&A portion. Today's session is being recorded, and everyone will be provided a copy of today's materials following the call. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator for today. T.C. Doyle is the executive editor at Channel Partners in Cloud Computing, where he covers business and industry trends. A writer, editor, and video storyteller who has covered the IT industry for more than 2 decades. He was previously the editor-at-large at Cisco and was the executive editor at VAR Business Magazine. Mr. Doyle has been a frequent speaker at IT industry events and trade shows and is the author of more than 1,000 technology news, articles, columns, features, and profiles. TC, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Sam, very much, and I want to thank everyone wherever you may be for tuning in this afternoon. I think we've got a very interesting webinar planned for you, and we're going to talk about the rise of the cloud distributor, and we're going to talk through some of the existential threats that distribution has traditionally faced and how it's traditionally rallied to make its industry the progressive success that it is. Helping me out today are 2 individuals you're going to want to hear from. First up, we have Tim Curran, who is the CEO of the Global Technology Distribution Council. For those of you that aren't aware of that, that organization represents $100 billion in commerce annually. That's with a B. This is an organization that reminds the industry just how powerful and influential the distribution community is. Tim has been with the organization for a while, and he regularly meets and huddles with some of the industry's top CEOs. He works with their teams to help make sure that distribution's interests and needs are met and fulfilled throughout the year. Prior to this, he was the head of sales with one of the world's largest distribution companies, Tech Data, out of Clearwater, Florida. And when he was there, he ran over 1,000 people in sales, technical support, and client-facing services. So Tim is well known throughout the industry, and you're going to want to hear definitely some of the exciting things that they'll bring to the table. Also joining us is Brent Althaus. He's the CFO and co-founder of Platte River Networks. He's joining us today in Denver, Colorado, in the shadow of Coors Field, where his organization there provides top services to customers and handling their voice IP needs, their cloud needs, all kinds of technology integration skills that they bring to the table. They're a crackerjack partner, and I think it represents a lot of what the current VARs and solution providers are doing in the marketplace, and they do it in a leading way. So we're going to bring these gentlemen into the conversation. I want to set the tone by simply saying at the onset that, you know, dodging storms is nothing new for technology distributors. In fact, there's always been one threat or another looming out there on the horizons. But distributors stand strong year in, year out. The latest storm, cloud computing, may not be a menace long. And here's why. As I mentioned earlier, distributors have always faced existential threats. And Tim, I'm going to bring you in. Before we get into what they're doing to prepare the channel to take advantage of cloud, give us some of that historical perspective on why distributors have constantly been able to reinvent themselves in face of disruptive threats, perhaps better than any industry segment to date.
You looking for comments, TC?
Please, Tim. Yeah.
Well, yes. All right. I wasn't sure you were asking a question, but as TC said, the industry the technology distribution industry has done an amazing job, I think, to continue in the face of challenges, continue to grow. Even before the direct threat, for those of you old enough to remember it, when the internet was first introduced, people automatically said, well, naturally, with the internet, you don't need a distributor. You can do everything direct with a vendor and get all of your needs met. So we learned a new word. The internet will disintermediate distribution. Today, of course, the distributors are the backbone of every major internet reseller in the U.S. and overseas, so they remain strategic and core in the internet age that we obviously currently live in. On Dell, you had, as TC said, a leading vendor executive who for many years said, go direct. You don't need a distributor. In fact, they don't add any value. For the last several years, you may or may not be surprised to know that one of the fastest growing vendors in distribution is in fact Dell. And the reason for that is they have realized what every manufacturer realized, that to reach the highly fragmented mid-market in the IT industry, there is no more efficient way to reach that sweet spot than through a distributor for several key reasons. One, this industry remains a multi-vendor solution industry. No one manufacturer has all of the secrets, all of the products, all of the technologies that a reseller or an end user wants or needs. So at some point, multi-vendor technologies need to be integrated into a complete solution, and that integration is done by the distributor and the reseller working in close partnership. So this, to me, there have been challenges, but just to take a step back, TC, to give you some recent numbers to show you the IT distributors in Q1 2014 are at an all-time high. Sales continued to grow in Q1 8% over last year. And looking at some of the data, the 13-week running sales trend for the distributors in the U.S. is today running 11% above last year. So this is a community of very strong companies, financially very sound, very positive sales trends, and perhaps more importantly, not dependent on any one product sector, any one vendor, or small group of vendors. Today, we have multiple categories that are growing. The $10 billion computer category is up year over year 11%. In other words, the distributors help their vendors find $1 billion of incremental new revenue last year. The networking industry is up 4%. The storage industry is on fire, growing at 8%. So the distributors, working with the suite of technology vendors, are able to aggregate those solutions, help their resellers, put them together, deploy them for their end users. And today, that same process, and I'll end here, that same process is developing in the cloud, and the distributors are emerging as the place where cloud services can be integrated and delivered as solutions to the marketplace. TC, I'll turn it back to you.
We're talking about the rise of the cloud distributor. With us today is Tim Curran, the CEO of the GTDC, and Brent Allshouse, White River Network CFO and co-founder. We're going to bring Brent into the conversation here in a moment. Tim, question to you then, while you're talking on this topic. Facing the existential threats, is the original value proposition that distributors bring to the table, is that rendered or changed? Your numbers suggest that it's not. But what impact will the cloud have on distribution, and how disruptive technology is it going to be?
Okay, good question. It's interesting, TC. 2 weeks ago, I hosted in New York on Wall Street a distribution investor conference, which brings together all of the CEOs of Ingram Micro, Arrow, Avnet, Tech Data, Synex, etc. And on that, at that conference, we had a panel with the CEOs, and this was a question posed to them. What impact is the cloud having on you? And the distribution CEOs reported at that conference that two things. A, they are all preparing for and implementing cloud programs and solutions, but B, the cloud has yet to have a major impact on their business. They cited a 5% impact as some products, maybe the servers, are impacted, but overall, so far, not a major impact, but they are preparing for what they see as a sea change in the technology industry overall in order to remain relevant to their vendor partners and their reseller partners.
We're going to get to a little bit more what those are specifically in a moment, but Brent, let's bring you into the conversation at this juncture. When you first started delivering cloud solutions, was your initial thought that maybe distribution was not going to be your partner, and how has that been proven wrong to you?
You see, I believe that as cloud computing has come about over the last several years, we've always thought that we were going to have to use distribution to facilitate what tools and resources we were going to use in our cloud computing offering to our customers, mainly because we have used distribution over the years and have always seen the value of leveraging distribution to vet new ideas and new processes. So as we started to brand our managed service practice about 5 years ago, it was an integral part of us defining the cloud computing that we were going to offer to our customers by vetting different services and applications and manufacturers through our distributing partners like Synnex and Ingram and Arrow.
For those that aren't familiar with your organization, we're going to get to a little bit more deeply what you guys are doing with distributors. Give us some broad background about your company, its founding, how it started off, and where you guys emerged and morphed into.
Like many of you on the call, we're a small managed service practice in Denver, Colorado, probably very similar to many of you on the call. We're about 30 employees ranging from engineers to salespeople to support staff, and our internal operations center that we call Intuition. That's our branded managed service practice. That's kind of our go-to. And for those of you that remember the day of rolling a truck out to customer site, billing time and materials to a client on an outsourced basis, and worrying about where's that next call going to come from, and am I going to have availability to send somebody out? Now we've moved into the managed service practice primarily, and this has allowed us to leverage cloud, to leverage our resources in a much more strategic way. So that's a little background on us. We've been in business for about 12 years, and couldn't be more happy with what the industry is doing and what we're doing in Denver.
Good. On the screen now.
Hey, TC, I'm sorry to interrupt real quick. There's some folks that are having trouble hearing you. I don't know if you could turn up the volume on your handset or speak up, if that'd be possible.
Yes. Is this better? Is this hopefully the audio quality will improve? But I'm going to talk a little louder.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Very good. So on screen now is the technology value chain and how it's evolving. You can see this slide comes to you courtesy from the GTDC, and it's available in a PowerPoint, in a PDF. They have a terrific paper that talks about the role that distributors will play in distribution. It's available on their site at gtdc.org. But it talks about the value chain and how it is evolving, and right to some of the things that we were discussing prior to this. So you'll see the traditional areas of focus of R&D, hardware and software and service development that the vendor community was responsible for, and the traditional roles that distributors, likewise resellers, and obviously customers played as well. Tim, I want to have you touch on this as we move up that stack and we move through that evolution, what kind of changes are distribution companies that you're working with making today in order to preserve their value add in the marketplace?
Well, yeah, I think Brent addressed it. The core value, in a way, is no different than it's always been. They are, as in his words, vetting new processes, new cloud services, so that he can confidently integrate them and offer them to his customers. I'll give you an example. I remember doing this was in a hardware and software world, a little bit before the cloud, but I did a reseller panel, and the question was, what value do you get from distribution? And one of the panelists, a reseller, said, hey, look, I'm trying to build a new security practice. Now, if I go out and try to sign 6, 7, 10 new vendors, get authorized, get certified, and to be able to deliver their products to market, I can do that on my own, but it'll take 6, 9, 12 months to effectively offer security solutions to my customers. Working in partnership with my distributor, who's got relationships with every one of those companies, I was able to go to market in 60 to 90 days with they vetted the vendors, gave me advice on which were the best vendors to work with, introduced me to the senior management at those companies, and helped get me authorized. And I think the same process works in cloud, that if a reseller works with a distributor, so this is my customer set, these are the cloud solutions I'm interested in, or these are the practices I'm trying to support, what cloud solutions are most effective, will be most effective for me, the distributor can do that. The same things, product, hardware, software, credit, which we'll talk about, are also a service that the distributor offers to the reseller as he delivers those cloud services to the marketplace. I'll give you an example. I was at a cloud conference late last year, and there were several traditional and large cloud-only providers in the audience. We got to the issue of credit, and I mentioned, and this is a statistic that is also on our website, that the distributors last year delivered $12 billion of credit to the marketplace, and they offered that credit to the marketplace with less than 50 basis points, less than 0.5% bad debt write-off. And one of the cloud providers in the room sat back and he said, can you repeat that? $12 billion in credit with less than 0.5 basis points bad debt write-off? And he shook his head. He said, we can't get anywhere near that. So as a vendor, a cloud vendor tries to get to the mid-market, a highly fragmented, unstable market with clear risks, this is another value that distribution offers. In addition to integrating products, they can help deliver those products and services and cloud solutions in a way that protects the vendor from the credit risk that is inherent in a fast-changing market and in a fragmented market.
Those are some amazing figures. Thank you, Tim. Brent, I want you to pick up the baton and carry it from there. Talk about some of the services that you're leveraging in addition to vendor vetting and helping you select. You know, every day as an editor, I'm getting hit with a new press release touting a new web services company, each with a slight different business model. Pick up from what Tim was saying. How are the distributors helping you select companies and select vendors that you want to represent in the marketplace? And how are they helping you with other services like credit and some of the other things they're doing in the cloud?
So I think that the beauty of using the channel and distributors to figure out what to use, we only go to the subset of vendors that they have vetted for us. So if they're not in with distribution, we almost immediately turn down any requests from said software vendor or hardware vendor or cloud computing vendor unless they are with a distributor like Arrow or Ingram, because we feel like we don't have the capacity to evaluate all of the new companies coming on to the industry. And if I took every sales call, I wouldn't get anything else done in trying to figure out what products are we taking to market. So our first inquiry to a company that's approaching us are can we get your products and services through distribution? Once we've established that, then we can determine, okay, now what does that product set look like to our market space, the mid-market, the small market, and will it apply to a percentage of our customer base? As far as financial obligations through distribution, they offer great ways for me as a small business to leverage their credit lines, their cash, because they want us to buy more. And I've never gone into a deal where somebody that is working with distribution hasn't been able to say, yes, we will help you guys get this on your paper, get it delivered to the customer, understanding that there is going to be, that cost of doing business. We would rather get it through Platte River, deliver the, let's say, firewall solution via the cloud, and worry about getting paid in 30, 60 days and extending those terms out to me as a small organization who maybe wouldn't be able to get those lines of credits just by myself without distribution.
Very good. Some interesting things. Tim, I wanted to bring it back to you, or actually, Brent, let's stay with you for a moment. This slide comes from the CompTIA organization, the Chicago-based industry association that represents solution providers and vendors and distributors out there. They did a study in the last year that will talk about the cloud impact on the distributor-channel partner relationship. And echoing what you've said, Brent, already, and Tim as well, most 21% of those that they polled felt that their relationship with the distributor was not challenged, but instead strengthened thanks to distributors. And well over half, 65%, felt that there was no negative impact, that stayed about the same. Despite the disintermediating effects of the cloud, most channel partners believe that distributors will fare well. 50% believe that the cloud will have a positive impact. Some additional information about from CompTIA, how partners envision using distributor cloud services. You've heard Brent say some of these as well: technical support, aggregation, data center accessibility, etc. So some very strong things. Brent, what could distributors do for you to help you grow your cloud business right now that maybe they're not doing today?
Well, there's a lot of things that are, for me, are unknown about the direction of what do I want to do with my company at Platte River, and I think the things that they can bring to us is what are the programs that are being offered that are going to be the industry leading trends. Like, for instance, we're hearing a lot about Dell's channel program, and I'm sure that many of you have always purchased Dell Direct. I mean, look at the slide that TC had up before, and then Tim also mentioned how much they're going after that market space now through the channel. And one of the things that me as a managed service provider, I want to know, okay, well, who should I purchase through? I mean, I have these relationships over here on direct side, whether it be Dell or HP or whoever it might be. Why should I change that relationship through distribution? And what is the right timing for that? So a lot of times we hear that there's a program that's coming out and it's going to be offered through the channel, and then the distributor, oftentimes, yeah, they want to get that announcement out. And what we're looking for is, you know, how does that impact me if I make that change? And I think that that's one of the biggest challenges just with Dell alone is if we make that change, how does that impact the relationships that I have where I was purchasing direct? And I think as these organizations like Ingram and Arrow and Cinex bring on new partners, having their programs be laid out very clearly about, you know, how and why you want to use distribution, you're going to get more organizations like Flat River to purchase through distribution because it's a trusted partnership.
Mm-hmm. Tim, touch on the aspect about the investments that distribution companies are making. These aren't just drive-by adjustments to please Wall Street, but some of the investments that the GTDC members are very steep in running into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Talk about the investments that you see that they are sinking to really ensure that they're going to be able to handle organizations like Brent's needs going forward.
Well, to speak to the point that Brent was just making, I showed a slide at my investor conference that I think surprised a lot of people. And it showed that in distribution in the past year, 350 new vendors have entered the distribution mix. Now, to Brent's point, those 350 were probably a set of 750 or 1,000 who tried to get in, who said, hey, we've got a product, we want to get out, we want to get to the market, but the distributors vetted each of those 350, made sure, A, they had a product and service that was valuable, that fit a defined niche, that would have a reasonable sales run rate, and that they had a program that was acceptable and supportive of distribution and the channel. And that's one of the values that they add to a company like Brent's, who, as he said, he'd spend all day on the phone trying to talk to these guys. Instead, his calls with the distributors, hey, Brent, there's some new vendors we think you should look at in the managed services area, in the security area. And that's another value that the distributors offer with their teams and with their relationships.
Pick up on that, Brent, because I want to talk about a trend that we see happening in the marketplace. You and I have talked about it before. And you mentioned earlier that you're very excited about where your company and where the industry is. So the question on that is, to pick up from Tim's point, I meet with a number of new vendor organizations or vendors who heretofore have only played in the very high-level enterprise. And when they get excited about the cloud, one of the aspects that they get most excited about is this democratization of technology, that stuff that was enterprise application oriented in a SaaS space, only available to the largest of institutional customers, is now coming down. So organizations like yours that cater to a certain size commercial account can bring to these organizations new functionality, new technology that may have been priced out of them, or the sophistication level of that technology to integrate into their existing IT data centers would have just been too much for that organization. Talk about how the cloud and working with distributors gives you new opportunity in that realm.
You're absolutely right, TC. Years ago, you know, as a small business and working with small to medium-sized business, and I'm talking about, you know, 500 seats and lower, it was very difficult to implement, you know, enterprise solutions that were affordable to the small and mid-sized market. For us, you know, the cloud has enabled us to enhance our service offerings, and I think not only the customer's eyes are open to, hey, now I can have a disaster recovery plan that's affordable. I can have the tool set that my competition has that's doing 10 times the revenue, and I can compete because the technology is allowing me to compete there. I think we're also finding that vendors are working closer with managed service providers like us, because there's a market space where they were once going after, $1 million deals, and now they're going after $10,000, $100,000 deals, which are easier to sell, quicker to sell. Small businesses are wanting to pay for that technology to compete. So it's opened up a lot of opportunities where vendors are working through distribution and then working with the managed service provider, because we own that relationship and that trusted relationship with those customers.
Tim, talk about the vetting. Give some of the listeners a window as to how this actually happens. Brent mentioned, you've mentioned, organizations of a certain size, they just don't have legions of people out there vetting technology solutions the way distribution companies have that bandwidth. Talk a little bit about that process, because you've seen that up close in your days at Tech Data. How does that work, and does that stay the same pretty much as the cloud organizations come to the distribution companies today? Is there a new permutation?
No, TC, good question. I mean, it's not so complicated. The distributors are all organized around practices. So they have a security practice, they have a networking practice, they have a consumer practice, etc. And within those practices, they have specialists, both technical people and sales and marketing people, who are working with the existing suite of vendors, but also on the lookout for new vendors, because they're in the middle between their vendor partners and the Brents of the world, who they talk to every day, support every day on implementations, on sales, on complex integrations. And so they're hearing, what do you need? And then hearing vendors with products, solutions, services, and are able to put the two together and offer them out to the channel as part of a program. So I think that is just part of the DNA of what a distributor does, dealing with 400 to 500 or more vendors and vetting them, understanding them, putting them within their own organization in a practice, a security practice, a networking practice, or something else, and making that available to Brent and his counterparts in the reseller community.
What role does, please?
TC, I'm sorry, this is Brent again. To elaborate on what Tim was saying, by them doing that and allowing us to white label these cloud services through our distribution, it enables us to brand our practice, and then as technology changes, incorporate new technologies into our managed service practice or our cloud practice, without the customer realizing that we're changing anything from a product standpoint, because they've allowed us to white label it.
Yeah, TC, this dates me a little bit, but when the industry was all boxes, one of the core services of the distributors was private label delivery. So they would take and put Platte River Networks label on the box when they shipped it from their warehouse, the distributor's warehouse, to the end user, so that the end user is not mindful of the fact that Platte River did not integrate that solution himself, because the distributors are 100% supportive of their resellers' branding and efforts, have always white labeled their boxes, and now, as he mentioned, are white labeling cloud solutions. And on top of that, many of the distributors also build online storefronts for their resellers, so that they can present that to their end users under their brand.
Talk a little bit, Brent, about that single invoicing, some of that additional services that distributors provide in terms of simplifying your life and how you face your customers and their billing. Because cloud managed services, different permutations. Very difficult to manage that. Talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to shift the conversation to some of the challenges that still lie ahead for distributors and how they're facing those.
So I guess there's two sides of this for us, TC, is, obviously the price that we're getting from distribution, and we as an organization have to figure out how we bundle those services and then deliver them to our customer. So there's certainly a challenge when working through distribution to identify the different buckets of where you're purchasing different cloud services, whether it be cloud backup or antivirus in a hosted environment, whatever that might be, or it might be a virtual desktop solution that you're offering to your customers. You're going to get multiple invoices from distribution with the different services that you do. The beauty of that, though, is being able then to focus your business into certain buckets as well. As I mentioned before, we have a practice called Intuition. That is our managed service cloud service offering to our customers. We bundle in a variety, depending on the package, what services are bundled into that package. So we might be offering a service to a customer that's 30 users at $100 per month per desktop or per server. We can then deliver that service and bundle in a package of, that's a backup plan, that's, virus protection, that's spam filtering. And as we find more products, we can bundle that in to enhance our service for that fee that they're paying us and provide more value so that we become more sticky to the client. So certainly challenges on both sides of being able to, simulate what we're getting billed for on a per user from the manufacturer or from the channel. But then it does simplify things out to the customer and make it easy for them to do business with us.
Very good. Let's shift the conversation. We've been talking about the advantages, the services, the opportunities that distributors offer solution providers in the cloud arena. But let's talk about some of those inherent challenges. Up on screen is another research data point from CompTIA talking about the perceived challenges distributors face. Before we get to those individually, let's ask the big picture question. And Tim, you get this all the time, I'm sure. As the cloud evolves, as vendors evolve their business, and distributors as well, does the cloud offer either the vendor community or the distribution community to change their go-to-market strategy and start going more direct to customers? I'm sure you get that all the time. What are your thoughts on that topic?
Well, it's a good question, TC. I mean, the cloud conversation, and it is addressed on the first line on this chart you have in front of us, it creates uncertainty. Now, the old saying, where there's mystery, there's margin. So the uncertainty can be turned into a positive as you go out and solve that uncertainty for your end users. But the challenge for the distributors, both with their investors on Wall Street and also with vendors, is the questions being asked, will this again disrupt the distribution channel? So this webinar and others like it are helpful to communicate the message that not only do we don't think it will damage them, we think there's a positive role for them to play, and we think they will prosper in this new emerging cloud world. Because it's more than cloud. There's also product convergence that's taking place where multiple new products, mobility, cloud, convergence, the software-defined data center are just a few of the trends redefining the technology landscape. And we believe that the channel is likely to play a key influencing role in influencing customer adoption and migration of existing infrastructure to these new architectures. And so I think that's happening. Brent is agreeing that that is in fact happening. We just need to convince more and more vendors that the distributors are able to make that happen and that they should partner more closely with their distributors to advance their market activities.
Brent, I want you to weigh in on that as well, to talk about, do you see or do you fear that the vendor community or the distribution community themselves will start to recognize that maybe there's an opportunity with the new technology, the convergence that Tim talked about, to take these solutions direct to customer themselves?
I think, TC, that there's always going to be certain, vendors that are going to try to go direct. But I believe that where customers win is when you're working with a trusted advisor who is working with distribution, obviously, to help you sell the right solution. We continue to find that we have a better chance of winning the deal if we take the vendor with us or the manufacturer with us on a call. For instance, we were on a service or a sales call yesterday with RTD. RTD is our transportation district here in Denver. Flat River, is a small organization, and for us to get a meeting with the regional transportation district here in Colorado is a big deal. And in the past, we wouldn't be able to get a meeting like that without distribution, and our relationships that we built with the said firewall application that we were presenting. We worked in conjunction with their sales team to get to the meeting, to sell the solution, to develop ideas around that solution, and then implement a solution as a team so that not only we win at Platte River, but the manufacturer wins as well.
Very good. We're talking the rise of the cloud distributor with Tim Kern, the CEO of the GTDC, and also Brent Allshouse, the co-founder and CFO of Platte River Networks in Denver. We're going to be taking some questions in a moment. We're going to run through a couple more that we've got questions and topics that we wanted to get to, but we invite you to submit some questions here upcoming. Tim, despite the pressures that you talked about that some Wall Street types put on distributors or vendors themselves, some of what we're talking about just comes down to physics. There is just simply no mechanism that anybody's been able to invent that can take high-tech goods and services and deliver them as efficiently to end-user customers the way that the traditional model that we have does today. So when I talk to vendors and I ask them about their changes and their go-to-market strategies, they simply say that the cloud is another technology permutation. It's a big and disruptive one, but it doesn't necessarily allow them to suddenly bypass the channel that they've been relying on for the last 10, 15 or more years. Do you think for the most of these new born-in-the-cloud organizations that will remain when the vendors that you talk about, those couple hundred that have come on board in the last quarter, I think you said earlier, do they still see that traditional relationship that they, or do you hear of plans where they want to bypass the channel or at least test those waters?
Well, I think it's not that they misperceive, it's that born-in-the-cloud guys are not generally aware because they have not had experience yet. I had a call with one of the distributors recently where they told me, Tim, we are approached every month by born-in-the-cloud vendors who tell me, look, I've got a new solution and it's great, and we've got 10, 15, 25, whatever the number is, customers who are buying it, and they're happy, but now we need to go from 25 to 100 to 500 to 1,000, and we just don't have the infrastructure, the organization to do that. Can you help us scale? And scale has always been one of the benefits and capabilities of distribution. So I think born in the cloud vendors are going to continue to rely on the same dynamism and scale that distribution has always offered to traditional IT hardware and software providers.
Okay, very good. Brent, you seen that as well?
Yes, TC, I completely agree with Tim's comments.
Good. Well, we're going to
it's really more from a vendor perspective, TC. In other words, the vendor, you've got a new mousetrap, and you say, how do I get to market? Well, your team goes out and offers it, but you say, I just have to scale faster, and the only way to do that is in partnership with the distributor, I think, or the best way to do that.
I want to ask you both gentlemen to weigh in. Where do you think we are in the transition from on-prem to cloud? And are the business models that we're leveraging and using today producing the margins that they need to and the returns they need to for organizations like you, Brent? Or do you foresee a big shift coming as the cloud matures and line of business buying and your customers increases? Do you see that happening?
So I think that there's maybe two things to point out in this. If you try to implement cloud solutions with the same model that you approached your on-premise solutions with a lot of resources, a lot of engineers, a lot of back-end support, you're going to see your margins decrease, and thus, it could be very difficult for you. If you refine and get more strategic about how you deliver those services, you can not only keep your margins as they were before, but you're likely to increase them 10 to 15%. I know that our service offerings on the on-prem stuff was probably 50% margin. And now delivering cloud services through our managed service practice, we're seeing 65 and sometimes even 70% margins on those services. So you definitely have to realign your organization, and it may even mean realigning and changing some of your staff. It's hard to make those people that were delivering the service a certain way, and now you're wanting to deliver it a new way. Some of those people won't change, and it's very difficult to make that transition. So be prepared for a change in people and delivery.
Very good. As they start to build out their portfolios and product portfolios of the cloud, what's going to be the next wave that you see coming?
Well, I think in terms of, the one thing to keep in mind is that while the cloud is growing, public cloud services will remain for the near future, and I've been looking at forecasts up until 2017, 2018, will remain a relatively small part of the overall market. So while it does have a high compound average growth rate, the public cloud, and again, public versus hybrid cloud or private cloud, the public cloud market, I think, will remain relatively small as we look into the future. Today, distribution is playing an active role in hybrid clouds and in provisioning private clouds. So I think for the near-term future, the cloud is not disruptive, and in fact is creating new business opportunities for organizations like Platte River and for all of the big distribution companies.
Okay, good. We're starting to get some questions from the audience. We want to start to turn to those, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Rise of the Cloud Distributor with Tim Kern of the GTDC and Brent Alshouse of Platte River Networks. So let's get to these questions. We've got some pouring in. We'll get to as many as we can. We want to thank you again. So gentlemen, first question, please, whomever wants to jump forward. Do you see resellers sometimes starting with distributors, then moving to vendors directly? Brent, what do you see?
TC, we've been using distribution for such a long time. We have a very different time in switching from using distribution to then buying direct. So for me, it's kind of been our business practice not to do that. On the other side, I have seen where we have found a product or a solution that is not being delivered through distribution that we like, that we vetted ourselves, that we've been able to bring to distribution and set up some relationships so that we can get it through distribution, which not only helps us, but also helps that manufacturer as well.
Very good. Another question that's pouring in, and maybe Tim, you could start on this, and Brent, if you want to pick up as well. I would like to know how vendors build distribution into the post-sales support experience.
Well, and the answer to that is not so effectively sometimes, because that is a question that needs to be discussed at the beginning of the relationship or at the beginning of the sales campaign, but it is often not. But I think there too, the distributors can play a key role and do play a key role in providing technical support in the post-sale universe to reseller customers and under contract for end-user customers.
Brent, you want to weigh in on that as well?
I would completely agree with Tim's comments. We've leveraged, in many cases, technical resources and support resources post-sale to help us support, or when we've been challenged with something that is maybe out of our ability, been able to leverage them not only for technically, but also assistance and training for ongoing service and support for maybe a new deal or the existing customer.
Okay. Another question, my company is too small to effectively take advantage of what distributors have to offer. My company's too small to take advantage of what distributors have to offer. Does the cloud change this?
This is Tim. I don't believe it does, in the sense that I do believe there are different flavors of distributor out there. So you have Ingram Micro on the one hand, Tech Data, Arrow, Avnet, big global billion-dollar organizations, and you also have smaller distributors. Another one of my members is D&H, a company, distribution company that plays an active role in servicing particularly small resellers. So I think depending on what you are and what your needs are, there is a distributor that can serve your needs, and then all of the value propositions that we've talked about on this call would be available to you in that new relationship. And if you need
Brent,
help introducing, we'd be happy to provide that.
Do you see, before I get Brent to weigh in on that as well, Tim, do you see new distributors forming around just a pure play cloud opportunity?
Honestly, no, Brent. We have seen, not so much in the U.S. market, in some of the other markets, Europe, for example, we've seen recently new distributors spring up in the storage area. Storage is highly complex. Cloud, as a result of the cloud, is growing very rapidly. So in fact, we did see a substantial new distributor startup that specialized in storage. Have not seen that in the U.S. market recently.
Okay. Very good. We're going to take as many of these as we can. I want to thank you, viewers, for submitting them. Brent, I think a question coming at you. What are you seeing in terms of average margins that distributors receive from cloud service providers for their role in the cloud channel marketplace? I'm not quite sure get that question 100%. I'll try it, and maybe, Tim, if you hear something that perks your ears up, what are the average margins that distributors are receiving from CSPs in the cloud marketplace?
Well, Brent, I'll let you take a first shot at that.
What I is, I don't know specifically if I understand the question correctly, like the distributor is getting a percentage of those margins if I'm running my business through, let's say, Ingram Micro on the cloud computing side. The margins that they've negotiated with, let's say, that vendor or that manufacturer, I'm unaware of what that would be. I can tell you, though, that in competing direct with maybe a direct sales rep, we usually are able to compete from a price point with direct teams. So somebody, whether it be the manufacturer or the distributor, somebody is dropping the price to where it is still affordable to buy it through the distributor or the partner of choice like Platte River Network. So I don't think that it's necessarily a concern because we are competing with direct sales on most of our deals, and it's never comes down to price, at least from what we can see.
TC, I'll add in on that. I think this has been a change in the industry over the last couple of years. There was a time back in the heyday, if you will, of the Dell-inspired direct, where vendors in general were favoring their direct organizations from a pricing perspective. But as vendors generally recognize the value of distribution and the importance of distribution in the mid-market, they have tried to eliminate any price discrimination against distribution with regard to their direct sales forces. So as Brent said, he's able to be competitive buying through a distributor with the direct organization, and then it's up to the end user to decide whether they like the suite of services that they get from Brent and its partnership with Ingram Micro or Arrow or one of the others, or whether they want to have that direct relationship. But today, I'm hearing what Brent is saying is that price is not a deal killer when buying through distribution.
We've been talking the rise of the cloud distributor with Tim Kern of GTDC, Brent Allshouse of Platte River Networks. Gentlemen, we're coming up to the end. I'm going to ask you one last question, and that is your future thoughts or parting words on this topic. Brent, I'm going to start with you. When you look at distribution, how you're leveraging, how they've helped your business, how is that? What do you see is that going to be the future?
So 12 years ago, TC, when I started this business, I had visions of growing our business. We were two guys that were working out of our basement, and I'm sure many of you can remember those days starting your business. 12 years later, because of distribution and our relationships that we've formed through the channel, through distribution, we've been able to grow our business by leveraging what manufacturers offer through distribution and technical training, financing, the ability to grow Platte River Networks because of distribution. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to provide my information, and you can reach out to me directly. I like to share our story because I want to hear more people succeeding and understanding and learning from each other and why and what tools we're using to grow our business, because there's a ton of business out there, and I think if we partner with the right groups and distribution and cloud computing being the one that we're focused on right now, it's very important to leverage people that have gone through the experience and are continuing to go through the experience so that you can avoid any pitfalls that you might encounter.
Thank you, Brent, very, very much. Tim, we've only got about 30 seconds left.
Well, I almost can't say it any better than Brent just did. I just remain excited about the future of the technology industry. There's more new products, new services, new software, new cloud solutions that will add to the productivity of the country and the world, and distribution will remain at the center of the supply chain, partnering both with all of the major and emerging vendors and with proactive and successful resellers like Brent. So I'm I'm amazingly optimistic for the future of the tech business and for distribution.
That's Tim Kern of the Global Technology Distribution Council. Tim, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And Brent Alshouse, CFO and co-founder of Platte River Networks. Brent, thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And thank you, TC.
Thank you, gentlemen. And on behalf of the cloud services community, you've been listening to the Rise of the Cloud Distributor. We want to thank you for tuning in. This is TC Doyle. Here's wishing you a happy day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, TC, and thank you, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending. Please do take a few minutes to fill out your post-event survey. We do love to hear your input to use for future events. This concludes today's conference, and you may now disconnect.